ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ನಾನು ಸಲೀಂ. Dear students, in this video we are going to study the one of the important concept of endocrinology, that is pituitary gland. So let's start the video. Now, see, the pituitary gland, it is also known as hypophysis, and it is commonly called master gland because it controls the function of most of the endocrine glands in our body. We know that endocrine glands means these are the ductless glands which secrete the chemical messengers called hormones. And this pituitary gland is connected to the hypothalamus by a stalk called infundibulum. Okay, you can see in this picture. So this is the hypothalamus, and below the hypothalamus we can see the presence of pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland is connected to the hypothalamus by the infundibulum. Now, this pituitary gland is located in a bony cavity called sella turcica. So sella turcica is a bony cavity which is located at the base of the brain where the pituitary gland is situated. You can see this beautiful picture. So here the sella turcica, it is a bone of sphenoid. It comes under the sphenoid bone. So this sella turcica contains the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is connected to the hypothalamus by infundibulum. And you can clearly make out that the pituitary gland is differentiated into two parts, anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. I hope it is clear. And you can see this is the brain, so where the pituitary gland is situated in the sella turcica. Now, if you look at the divisions of the pituitary gland is divided into mainly three lobes. Anterior lobe, it is also called adenohypophysis, intermediate lobe or pars intermedia, and the posterior lobe, also called neurohypophysis. So this is the beautiful picture which gives you a more clear idea about the anterior pituitary. It is mainly divided into pars distalis and pars intermedia, you can see in the middle, and this is called posterior pituitary or pars nervosa. Now, the anterior pituitary hormones. So first we are going to study the hormones produced by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Now, first one is growth hormone. It is also called somatotrophic hormone. It stimulates the body growth, protein synthesis, as well as the metabolism of fat or lipids. And the deficiency of this hormone causes dwarfism in the children. So especially if you visit a circus where you can see the jokers, or you can say the short humans, they are referred as dwarfs because their height is very much reduced. And why this happens? It is due to the deficiency of growth hormone or somatotrophic hormone. And the deficiency of growth hormone in children, that is dwarfism. Suppose if there is a hypersecretion of growth hormone in children or child, results in gigantism. And if the growth hormone is hypersecreted in adult, it causes acromegaly. So these are the disorders of growth hormone. Now, coming to the next hormone, that is thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH. So it mainly stimulates the thyroid gland. As the name suggests, it stimulates the thyroid gland to release the T3 and T4. What is T3 and T4? So triiodothyronine, tetraiodothyronine. These are the two hormones produced by the thyroid gland under the influence of TSH hormone secreted by the anterior pituitary. Now, so sometimes if these hormones are hypersecreted, means excess of secretion of these hormones results in hyperthyroidism, and a low secretion causes hypothyroidism. So hypo means low, hyper means excess. Now, another hormone, ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. So it stimulates the adrenal cortex, very important, not adrenal medulla. It stimulates the cortex region of adrenal gland and mainly to produce the cortisol. So cortisol is a hormone produced by the adrenal gland. Now, if the ACTH is hyper secreted, it causes Cushing's disease, and the low secretion of these adrenal hormones results in Addison's disease. Now, coming to the gonadotropins, so that is FSH and LH, very important. So for competitive exam, they will give the multiple choice question like identify which are the gonadotropins. So there are two gonadotropins, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Now let us study about the FSH. See, this follicle stimulating hormone, it stimulates the ovary. We know that ovary contain different follicles like primary, secondary, tertiary follicle, Graafian follicle, corpus luteum. So these are the different follicles. So it stimulates the different follicles, follicular growth in women, and also it is responsible for production of sperms in the men. So this hormone work in male as well as females also. And if the FSH is decreased, it causes infertility as well as delayed puberty. Now, the luteinizing hormone, it triggers ovulation. We know that ovulation, the process of releasing of ovum from Graafian follicle of the ovary. And we know that, so during menstrual cycle, at the middle of the menstrual cycle, generally 14th day, there is a LH surge. So this high concentration of LH, it is responsible for degeneration of Graafian follicle and results in ovulation, nothing but release of ovum. And in case of male, the LH is responsible for production of testosterone hormone. And the disorders are menstrual irregularities and infertility is also caused due to the lack of luteinizing hormone. And you should remember these two hormones, they stimulate the gonad or reproductive organs, hence they are called gonadotropins. Now, coming to the last hormone, that is prolactin. So it stimulates the production of milk in lactating mother. So after the delivery, so the child is nourished by the milk produced by the mammary glands. So therefore, in case of lactating women's milk is produced under the influence of prolactin hormone. So these are the totally 6 hormones you should remember secreted by the anterior pituitary. So number 1, growth hormone, TSH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, FSH and LH, and prolactin. So totally 6 hormones are produced by the anterior pituitary gland. Now coming to the posterior pituitary. Okay. So before that, so we'll study the intermediate lobe. So the intermediate lobe of the pituitary gland is also called pars intermedia. It secretes one hormone, that is melanocyte stimulating hormone. So what is the function of this MSH? So it regulates the skin pigmentation. For example, we know that fishes and amphibians, frogs, they are very much colorful. Especially if you visit an aquarium, you can see the brilliant coloration of fishes. Why this color is produced, or who is responsible for production of this color is because of MSH. So MSH regulates the skin pigmentation, and in case of humans it has a very minimum role. So MSH does not influence the pigmentation in human, but in case of lower animals like fishes and amphibians, it is very important. And remember, the intermediate lobe of the pituitary gland secrete only one hormone. That's why it is very important for competitive exam. Then coming to the posterior pituitary hormones, dear students, you must remember the posterior pituitary gland do not secrete any hormone. It does not produce any hormone. It stores the two hormones which are actually produced by the hypothalamus. So they are ADH, nothing but antidiuretic hormone, also called vasopressin, and one more is oxytocin. See, if anyone asks you, so oxytocin is produced by means it is produced by hypothalamus, but stored in the pituitary gland. Whenever there is a requirement, it is released from the posterior gland, I mean posterior pituitary. Now, what is the function of this antidiuretic hormone? So this antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin, it promotes the water reabsorption in the kidney to reduce the urine input. See, we know that we are the amniotic animals. We need to, we are the urotelic animals. Humans are urotelic, and therefore the ammonia is converted into urea in our body, and it require more amount of water. So to save the water, I can say simply to save the water, this ADH hormone plays a very important role, and also it maintains the BP, blood pressure. And the deficiency of ADH causes diabetes insipidus, and also one more disease called syndrome of inappropriate ADH, that is SIADH, syndrome of inappropriate ADH due to hypersecretion of ADH. So these hormones must be in their optimum value. Hypersecretion also causes some problem, and low secretion will also results in other problem. Dear students, one point I would like to mention here: diabetes mellitus. Actually, you know that is referred as commonly sakre khaile roga. So that is caused due to lack of insulin. But diabetes insipidus, it is caused due to lack of ADH or vasopressin. So don't get confused. Diabetes mellitus is actual the diabetes which is caused due to lack of insulin. Insipidus is caused due to low secretion of vasopressin. Now coming to the oxytocin, oxytocin performs two functions. So it is responsible for strong contraction of uterus during labor nothing but childbirth, and ejection of milk from the mammary gland, especially when the child is breastfeeding. So ತಾಯಿ ಎದೆ ಹಾಲು ಕುಡಿಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ so the milk is ejected, that is because of oxytocin. Again, here I would like to mention that production of milk in mammary gland is due to prolactin, and release of milk or ejection of milk anta kelidre you should take the option oxytocin. So be careful, and the disorders like it can lead to poor milk ejection or weak labor contraction if the oxytocin is secreted in low quantity or hyposecretion. I hope it is clear about the posterior hormones, and thank you very much for your attention.